Thank you for coming. Today, Liberty High School remembers the events of September 11th, 2001, 17 years ago. Today, our speaker I'd like to introduce is Thomas P. O'Donnell. Tom was born in New York City, received a Bachelor's degree of Arts from St. Peter's University and a Master's of Arts from Seton Hall University. He's a graduate of the FBI National Academy and served on active duty in the U.S. Army from 1973 to 1974. He then served in the U.S. Army Reserves from 1974 to 2001, when he retired at the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Tom was a police officer with the West New York Police Department from 1978 to 2007, when he retired as Deputy Chief of Police. He was the commander of the department on September 11, 2001. Presently, Tom lives in Lehigh Township, Northampton County, with his wife of 35 years, Carol. After relocating to Pennsylvania, Tom has continued to serve his community as a volunteer firefighter with the Lehigh Township Volunteer Fire Company. Mr. Tom O'Donnell.
Thank you much, Mr. Worther. Appreciate that introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Worther conned me into coming here saying there was going to be a small crowd. I think not, but I am so happy to see a large crowd celebrating and remembering this day that is so important to us. I always face this day, September 11th, every year with mixed emotions. Sadness at what happened 17 years ago, the death, the destruction, and the pain. And at the same time, I feel happiness and gratitude for our military personnel, our law enforcement personnel, our firefighters and emergency medical personnel, and I feel tremendous pride in our wonderful country. I look back on September 11th, 2001 as if it were yesterday. The events of that day have been seared into my mind, and those events forever changed the world in which we all live today. Those of us who are old enough to remember that day will always recall what we did and what we were doing when this horrible tragedy occurred. And we will never, ever forget it. The next generation of Americans and generations to follow must know what happened so it never happens again. For as the philosopher George Santayana said many years ago, those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. On September 11, 2001, 4 commercial airliners headed for California from the East Coast were hijacked by Islamic terrorist group headed by Osama bin Laden. I was in my office in police headquarters and had the news on while completing some daily paperwork when reports came in on a plane crashing into the World Trade Center. It struck me as kind of odd that a plane would crash into a tall building on a clear day like that. I thought of possible terrorism right away. At 9:03 a.m., I watched the second plane hit the South Tower. There was no question what was happening now. The Port Authority Police Department, who are in charge of the World Trade Center as well as the bridges and tunnels going in and out of New York City, notified all surrounding agencies that New York was being completely shut down. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower collapsed. I didn't know until 2 days later that when it collapsed, it killed, along with many hundreds of others, a close friend and colleague of mine, Inspector Anthony Infante of the Port Authority Police Department. He had rushed to the World Trade Center from a meeting in Jersey City to assist with evacuation. I'm wearing his remembrance band on my wrist today, as I do every September 11th in his honor. All in all, on September 11, 2001, 3,000 people from 93 different nations were killed. 343 firefighters and paramedics were killed. 23 New York City and 37 Port Authority police officers were killed. Only 6 people who were in the towers when they collapsed survived. Ladies and gentlemen, young ladies and gentlemen, we must never forget that this happened. I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to remember those who died on September 11, 2001, along with you. May God bless all who died on that fateful day. May God bless all who have died protecting us since that day. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take a second and thank, first and foremost, the Bethlehem Fire Company who's here with us, and all of our first responders, police and fire, who are here with us today, as well as our honor guard. Thank you very much for your service and for being with us here today. These events that we do to honor the fallen bring back a lot of memories for those of us that attend them. But when you hear about the tragedy that occurs, it also brings back some other memories. For those of us that experienced it, once you sort of came to grips with the trauma of what happened, the next thing was absolutely amazing. Because you saw a country who had every reason in the world to be divided and fight with each other come together like we had never seen. The country came together in a way that it didn't matter your race, your religion, your place of birth. It didn't matter what you looked like, where you came from. None of that made any difference. If you were an American, you were offering whatever support you could that day to those people that were suffering. It truly was a moving and an amazing event. For all of the tragedy that happened, it shows you what a community can do when it comes together. It shows you how powerful we are when we join forces. Unfortunately, we always wait until something bad happens before we come together. But it's an opportunity to recognize that strength and say, we don't need to wait for incredibly bad things to happen for us to come together and change things. As young people, you now take up that charge. It is your opportunity to join together, to utilize the power that you have, and know that your power is limitless. But it is your opportunity to take charge of that power. Come together and change your world. We thank you for coming out. We thank you for your attention. And everyone, spend the day in thinking about what you heard. Thank you.